Rory McPhee in the house again. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Lee Stafford Education Masterclass Lives. We've got a staff today that needs no introduction. He's done a good few presentations for you guys in the past. He's got another cracker that I know he's going to be sharing with us today. He's going to be putting a twist on the one length above the bob, which is a timeless classic. So without further ado, please, in the house, Rory McPhee.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Or good afternoon, now, isn't it? Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's good today and had a good January, now into February. Yes, as Lee said, today I'm going to be doing the one length above. Very classic, very asked for technique, no matter what era in, what decade we're in. This is something that's always going to be coming in the salon. So the actual technique of the one length above, I didn't want to alter too much, but the ways we're going to play about with it today is, first we're going to talk about our sectioning in a little bit more depth. So sectioning is something that really is going to help you in any haircut, and particularly in a haircut like the one length above, which is a very classic technique, but it's one of them techniques that seems like it should be the most simple cut to do, but actually you do find it's actually one of the hardest cuts to do because it has the tiniest little deviation in head position, tensions, finger angles. It can all go to pot. So you really need to have your sectioning, because as we know, sectioning is our sat-nav to getting a perfect haircut. So we're going to go a little bit more into the sectioning, because sometimes when we do these lives, we kind of want to get to the cutting very quickly and we jump past the sectioning, or the section is already pre-done. So it's just kind of take it back a little bit, talk about the sectioning, and I'll also talk you through a little bit of my understanding and my beliefs of why we do the sectioning as we do it, and see if some of that might help you do it and also understand it a little bit more. We'll then do a couple of sections cutting wet hair. But after that, we're then going to, because we do a lot of dry wet cut and then drying, wet cut and drying in the haircut, that's going to be a bit noisy for us today. So what we're going to do is, once we've done a few sections together, talked about them basic principles that are really going to help you execute a one length above, then we're going to move to a finished product where we have a few sections to finish, talk about the difference in cutting the dry hair then, and then we're also going to finish off with a nice little micro fringe rather than the traditional fringe we do in this recipe. Micro fringes are massive at the minute. We're seeing a lot of trends for like 70s influences. We're seeing a lot of like androgynous hairstyles that are very unisex. And one of these is a small micro fringe. You see it on women, but you also see it on a lot of guys, and I think you will be more. Think Rod Stewart, Mick Jagger, those type of haircuts. I think you'll be seeing a lot more of them with the shags and the mullets that we're seeing as well at the minute. So this is just going to be a little way that you can tweak the one length above, nice different little fringe at the end, and then hopefully you'll take a few different lessons from this and also a little bit of a different look to the traditional one length above. Sound good?
Sounds good. So is a micro fringe a short fringe, Rory?
Yeah, so a micro fringe to me, is something that kind of, once you get above the eyebrows and it starts to get a little bit harder, for me personally, that starts to then become a micro fringe. And I guess then it's how short you take it. As I say, that's my terminology. You might find different people, like in hairdressing, always do say things differently. But for me, a micro fringe is anything from kind of there all the way up to kind of doing a real cropped short fringe at the top. So something that's a little bit shorter up there for me personally.
And can it be blunt, or is it textured?
Well, it can be. Today we're going to do a quite textured one, but yeah, definitely can be blunt. You know, you see a lot of people creating quite strong visual looks with some really strong blunt micro fringes. I mean, I've done them in the past, and you can spend hours just cutting a micro fringe bluntly because you just want to get it so spot on and perfect. But yeah. But I think at the minute, definitely the look is a bit more softer and a bit more broken up, and that's what we're going to do today a little bit. But yeah, you can do it both ways, definitely.
Gotcha.
So thinking about sectioning, so if we think about the one length above sectioning, the first thing that we do is we put a centre parting into the hair. So centre partings, simple principles are, we're working from the nose bone up to the hairline to kind of give us the centre of the head. And like always, we want to put our finger where we're going to be going. So this is just below the crown. So we know where the crown sits, and our finger's going to go just below the crown. So if I turn the head to the side, so you can see that in person, tail comes at the front, fingers just below the crown where I want to go, and I draw a hard, smooth line with my tail comb that meets my finger on this side. This line is not going to be spot on first time every time you do it, because it's just not the way it works. You know, sometimes we do nail it first time, and even though I've been doing these many, many years now, sometimes first time it just doesn't go in exactly. But like we always say, the key thing is to now spend your time doing your pre-sectioning and really nail your pre-sectioning. And I believe that the one length above is definitely one of those haircuts. If you spend a tiny bit longer on your pre-sectioning, once you have the technique of the haircut, it literally can fly in 2 seconds, because this really sets you up for success by having a strong foundation in your pre-sectioning. So turn your back to the
Tell
front.
me this, Rory, what would you do if it was a busy Saturday, you were fully booked, you were under pressure for time, someone came in, wanted a bob, one length above, would you still put the section in like you're doing now?
If I was going to be doing a very classic one length above pre-section, yeah, definitely, because I think that the thing that the pre-sectioning does is, one, it gives us our roadmap like we've said in the past, but also the other thing that it really, really helps with is, if that says a new client that's coming into the salon, you know, so many different things can happen or can be on that head that you're not expecting. And if we're trying to just put it in one chunk, it's really hard to assess and break down what you see. And say if they're around the ears extra fine, or you've got a nape whirl into the neck or something like that. If we just start cutting, what happens is we come across those as we're cutting. And on a busy Saturday, the last thing you want is to find it, try blag it, it goes wrong, and then you're literally in panic mode, sweating, oh my God, this is horrendous. Whereas if we've spent the 5-10 minutes even of our appointment doing our pre-sectioning, in the pre-section we've already assessed the texture of the hair, the thickness of the hair, if there's any jumps, if there's any kinks, so we know what's coming and we know we can alter what, because by this time we'll be masters of our one length above, so we know, okay, maybe I need to do this here or do that there to give me an extra bit of weight or an extra bit of length, stop any jumps happening. So I would definitely say some recipes, I would say when I'm busy, you can definitely express them. For this recipe, I would definitely say the pre-section just helps you so much that I would never do it.
So it kind of saves you time in the long run then to put a bit of time.
Time, effort, sweat, red face, all of it.
Yeah.
All of it. So we've got our center parting in now. So now what I've done is I've put my comb at the recession. So the recession is kind of, as we know in most hairs, it's in these, what guys have a lot more than girls sometimes. But the other thing that really helps me remember what a recession is we're looking for the change of direction in the head. So one way that if you're ever struggling to find the recession is if by popping your 2 hands flat, we're looking for this bevel that's around here when we're doing a horseshoe, and it comes up normally from the corner of the eyebrow. So if it's not a very obvious recession, if you look from the corner of the eyebrow up, that's where you'll find the recession. So we'll pop our comb flat, and then again, the comb's going to come round and back to the finger at the back just below the crown. Give that a little twist so it's secure but not tight. And then I'm going to come around the other side, find my recession on the other side, and then join again, firm, finding that finger, and then coming through.
So Rory, what would you do? How would you cut this bob if the client or the model had really curly hair?
Really curly hair for me, I mean, if we're cutting this from completely like she's got long hair, I would do a one length above on curly hair with exactly the same principles. But the only difference I would make is when I'm cutting through my comb, I'd be cutting through that wider part of my comb. When I'm cutting, just to allow a little bit less tension, allow the curl to do its own thing. But I definitely would still be putting my pre-section in the same. I definitely would still be doing the cutting technique the same. But I would then diffuse dry to natural curl fall, and then I would be looking at the curl pattern, and I would be looking to see where it's falling, how it's falling, and then I'd do some freehand cutting at the end. So with me, for curly hair, it's always important you really want to know that the curl is sitting in its natural fall. So we've put our basic shape in with our one length above, so the fundamentals are still the same. It's going to give us a nice blunt line, but then we might need to look at how the curl is formed and the best way to do that is to do it in natural curl. So what I mean by that is bit of curl product in, diffuser into the hair. None of this that, I mean, I know a lot of hairdressers do it, but I hear from a lot of curly hair clients, this is not what they like, is a lot of hairdressers are scared of curly hair, so they'll chop a 1 month above and then they'll say, oh, you need to go home and let it dry naturally now. But how do we know when they go home how it's going to dry naturally, particularly if we've done a really different and a real, taken from, say, long hair to a 1 length above? So what we need to be able to do as stylists also is be able to style curly hair in the salon. And what I mean by that is knowing how to use a diffuser, knowing about curl products, knowing about how to dry curly hair, so that you can take that client from wet to dry, check your haircut the same as you would, and not leave that client feeling that because she's got curly hair, she always gets half of the service. It's one massive thing that I do hear from a lot of people, that so you've really got to be careful of that. If the lady wants it to be left to dry naturally, that's a completely different thing from you saying we have to leave it to dry naturally. So now, as you can see, I've got my horseshoe section in. So I've checked my recessions, As we know, the final thing we do to check is we take our comb from the line down to the hairline, and we're looking for 1.5 times. And when we know we've got that, then we know that we've got a nice balance through the top. So I'm just going to then gently pin this out of the way. So we've got our horseshoe section in. Horseshoe sections, to me, great way to devise the head up, but think about what we're doing. We're devising the top of the head from the sides and back of the head. So again, we're thinking about big changes of direction in the hair that's going to really affect our haircut, and why it's good in those points to have kind of a break and figure out what's going on, because even on a 1 length above or a graduated bob or anything, this hair affects very different to hair that's coming from here because of things like gravity and the way that hair falls on the head. Because it's coming from a flat surface here, this hair can build weight up very quickly. So that's why it's really good to figure out the horseshoe section to find the change in direction. So what we're going to do now is comb all of this hair out of the way. And I just do this personally for me because I'm going to let the top down again to get our diamond sections. And for me, if this hair is all out and loose, there's a chance I'm going to go back into this and then I'm going to struggle because I've just spent ages doing this. I don't want to mess it up. So I'm just going to take it all down. So we've got it nice and tightly out of the way. Then just one clip over the top, and that's just going to keep that out of the way for me. And now I know I can let this section down on the top again without worrying about it falling over, because all of this is pinned away underneath. So I've taken that top section down again. And if you remember what we do now, normally, in the 1 length above, I'm just make sure our head's nice and in natural fall. We're then going to put our center parting in again. So exactly the same as what we did last time. Tail comb over the bridge of the nose, start at the hairline, finger where we're going, nice, smooth, straight line coming down. So I'd missed my finger a bit there. So we're just going to come back, go again. There we go. Now I'm going to split again, and like I said, it might not be right the first time we do it, but we're going to come across, we're going to look at it, we're going to check it. So this just needs a bit of a deviation there. And then bring it down the back. So again, we've got our center part back in, but if you think about it now, because we've pinned that hair away underneath, we can let this hair lie over the top without worrying about it getting mixed up and it going into our section that we've just spent a load of time doing, because we've spent ages doing that. We don't want to lose it. So I've got my center part. I've got everything nice and neat. There's no messiness. Everything's very clean because we want it to all be nice and clean. We don't want any messiness that's going to confuse us. So what we do now is we put up our comb on the top of the head and look for the comb to be balanced. So if we do that from the sides, we're popping the comb flat on the head, and we're looking for balance, because what we're looking for here is we're looking for the high point of the head. So the high point of the head is so important because that's where gravity acts from. All your hair and your hair fall will come from. So this is the highest point. Gravity is something that's always working on the hair, so we really need to figure out where that is, because that's where all natural hair fall is going to come from. So we've got our finger at the high point, then we're going to go from our recession up to our high point with a nice straight line. Then we're going to check for neatness, we're going to check for balance. Taking our time with this. And remember, we've got all this hair pinned away at the back underneath, so we don't need to worry about it falling down and going into that, because it's all neatly away anyway. So once I've got that and I'm happy with it, I'm just going to comb it over to the middle so I can make sure I've got a nice smooth line. And I'm going to come to
Rory,
the
yeah. You know when you cut the sides, would you sort of diffuse the sides off, and then would you ever consider cutting in the side freehand, similar to how we do the straight version?
The curly hair?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to be honest with you, I do a lot of my curly hair cutting on freehand, natural, creating a shape, particularly if I'm working with tighter curl textures. I think it's really an much easier way to see a shape happening and coming. And I mean, don't get me wrong, you have to be quite a confident stylist to probably cut that way, because you don't have the blanket background coverage of having pre-section, and you are visually looking at a shape and creating a shape almost the way like a sculptor creates something. So there definitely is a little bit more stress to it, but that's where I personally think that once you've got your basic technique in, yeah, freehand cutting would be an amazing way to do that, because that's where the hair is going to live naturally. And like we always talk about with our sectioning, with everything, we're looking for natural hair fall, because 9 times out of 10, that's how your client's hair is going to be most of the time. Not many clients are drying it into something completely different every single day. And if they do, that's what they do. But most of the time, or at least one of the time, they're still going to go to the supermarket and just wash their hair, and you want their hair to still look amazing even when they've done that. So what we've done now is we've done our 4 diagonal sections. So what we did then, let me take her off so you can see. You see that? So we've gone from the high point, we've come down to recession, then we've just carried them diagonal lines through to the back. And what we've done now, we've created then 4 diagonal sections. But the key thing to remember about them is they're coming from the high point. So again, when we come to in a second do the cutting on the dry hair that we're going to do, you'll see the benefit of making sure that that high point is in exactly the right spot. Because if the high point was off to one side, and then we start pulling hair from that high point over, what you'll find there is then when the hair goes back to natural hair fall, that's when we start to get a little lines in the hair, because you've cut it out of natural hair fall. So you've created weight in the haircut, and that's where we get these little lines that you then see hairdressers spending ages with their thinning scissors and shears and everything trying to blend it all out.
What was the most difficult haircut you've ever experienced, Rory?
Ooh.
What do you struggle with?
To be honest with you, I mean, I think the time when you struggle, I mean, I'm lucky. I've spent a lot of time, like cutting is one of my things I've loved from the start. So I've done a lot of education in it. So I think now the only time I ever struggle is if I get relaxed and I kind of lose my concentration and just think, it's another walk in the park. And if I do that, a one length below can become a struggle all of a sudden, because you're in the salon, you're chatting, you think, I've done 100 million of these, I don't need to really think about it. And before you know where you are, one side's a little bit longer than the other side, or shorter than the other side, or all of a sudden you've come to your sides and you've taken one side up just a tiny bit, but you said to you that she's growing her hair for a wedding and she only wants a tiny bit off, and you're now thinking, well, she's going to have to at least have an inch off, otherwise she's going to have a lopsided haircut. So that's the thing for me. It's not, if we do, particularly with the Lee Stafford recipes, if you nail the recipes, I don't think there's any haircut that's going to be scary for you. Like, even when you come to talk about doing creative haircutting, or we've talked about how taking the basic recipes that we have and then putting twists on them. You can even do such creative recipes so simply, so stress-free, and really have fun and enjoy them. The key thing for me is anything from the graduated bob to the one length above to an asymmetric pixie cut are always going to be hard if you don't pay attention, you don't concentrate. You get that bit of a strut in your step and be like, oh, I could do these in my sleep, and then
so the minute you take your eye off the ball, you're in trouble.
The minute you take your eye off the ball, the minute you think your basic principles go out of the door without knowing what's going to happen. For me, the key thing with hair cutting is every time that we close them scissors, that final chop, we have to visually already know what that hair is going to be doing and where that hair is going to be living once we've done it. And if we think it over and then chop, it's going to be so much better than just chopping and then afterwards looking at it and thinking, I didn't really think about that, and I didn't think that was actually going to lay there. And that's where I see the most problems is people just chop, particularly with cutting, they just chop before they've actually really thought about it and thought, where is this hair going to live once I've done the final effect of that? And thinking about all the other stuff like we talk about, where's your finger position? Is the head in natural hair fall? Where's your body position? All of this there's no right or wrongs, but every single bit of that is affecting the haircut. And if we don't understand every single bit of that, then we're not going to understand when we have problems in our haircuts and when our haircuts go wrong. So we have to understand all that so we can understand if our haircuts ever do go wrong, that's why they might be going wrong. So we've got the top half of the way now. We've got into them nice diagonal in them diamond pieces. So now we can let the back down. And then as we know with this haircut, all we do then is we split the front into the back. So for me again, it's just coming to the high point of the head, but something I do as an extra is I just pop my comb flat on the head. When the comb starts to leave the head, that's where my line's going to go in, because it's just showing me a change of direction in the head. So just an extra little helper for anyone who sometimes struggles with where to put that section in. So we just do one there, clip it out of the way, then we look for balance on the other side, comb across, balance on the other side, and pin that one out of the way. And like that, now we've then got our pre-sectioning ready for our one length above. So like I said, with the one length above, I'm not going to do much of the cutting. I'm just going to cut a few sections in the back wet, just so we can very basically go over the basic principles of what it is to cut a one length above. Then we're then going to move on to something that I did earlier, and that's when we go to the fringe. But coming back to this section, so our first section I'm going to cut from the side, and we'll talk to you about all of the things I need to be thinking about if I'm sat with it in the salon. And then what I'll do then is I'll turn the head to you, and then I'll let you then see the next part in terms of vision. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take, like we do in the video, a horizontal section across to the top of the ear. So for me, again, what we're doing here is we're finding the nape of the neck. So another way to really find where this is, you pop the comb flat on the head. Where the comb starts to leave the head, that's where the nape of the neck finishes. So we're looking for the nape of the neck. So that's where our horizontal line is going to go in. And we're then just going to come in from the other side and do exactly the same. So we've got that first cutting section. And like remember, with this first section, we want it to be quite a chunky section because we want to stop anything like nape whorls causing problems. But if it's too chunky that your scissors are bouncing out of it, then you need to go back and make it finer, but try and make it nice and on for the nape. Next things we're thinking about is head in natural hair fall. Yes, it is. Do we want it to be natural hair fall? We do for this because we want a chunky bob. If the head goes forwards, like a lot of hairdressers cut, it's not wrong. All it means is when the hair comes back up, the hair's going to want to tuck underneath because we'll have actually taken the underneath hair shorter, because of when the head goes forwards and we chop a straight line, as the head moves back up, the underneath hair goes underneath and we start to create a more beveled round bob. We want a square, one length bob, so the head's in natural hair fall. The next thing is my eyes want to be parallel to my section, because if my eyes aren't parallel to my section, I can't see what's going on. If I'm trying to look from above, I can't see my line, I can't see if it's parallel, so I need to be directly in line with my section. Then scissors, comb, however you want to do it, and then I'm directly behind where I want to be cutting as well. So if I'm to one side or to the other side, there's a good chance I'm going to over direct to myself because we naturally pull to our bodies. And we don't want any over direction in this. We want a straight one length above, so we don't want any over direction whatsoever. So I'm directly behind where I'm cutting. These are all the things we're thinking about before we do the final chop.
And I've got a question here from Paula, Rory. She says, do you have any advice on how you keep your comb dead straight when cutting that first section?
So for me, one of the key things is, and I'll show you on the next section, is holding it quite far away rather than really up close, because it's easier to see if it's level if you're far away, whereas if you're up close, it's much harder to see if you've got a diagonal on it or not. So for me personally, I stay quite far away, and that's then my level. And I'll also use reference points in the room. So on a doll's head, I'll use the base of the neck. Obviously, people don't have chopped off necks. So if I was in the salon, I might use the edge of the mirror or the something of the chair, so I can check every time of something that I definitely know is level. Is my comb looking level the same as that? And if my comb looks off one side or the other, then I know that I'm not 100% sure. So again, I'm going to pop the comb in. As you can see, my fingers are quite far away. I'm directly behind the section. Once I've got all that, I'm then just chopping my straight line across.
And Bon's just asked a good question. He says, Rory, when you're cutting hair on a block instead of a client, it's very different on a human because the neck is softer, and also hair growth patterns should be considered as well. So what would you do if someone's come in and they've got a really sort of like strong sort of cow's lick at the bottom of their nape, for example?
So for me, one of the great things about this haircut is because we do take quite a big first section, a lot of the time that kind of solves that problem, because the only time we really go wrong with cowlicks, unless they're really, really bad, is by taking it too short or layering there too much and then it starts to jump up. If we leave this much weight at the start, most cowlicks or whatever, naples, whatever they are going to be held down. If you think that that's not going to be the case, then take it even a little bit more still. But you can still do it in smaller sections, but just know that you need the weight to sit over the top. So just think about it. Anything like that, it just needs weight on top of it, unless it's crazy, crazy bad. Then you might have to have a conversation with your client and say, I know you want to go all the way to the neck, but you've got this nape. Well, let me show you with the mirror. If we do this today, I can get it straight, but you're going to have a nightmare for the next 6 weeks till you come back to see me. So I would recommend us leaving a little bit more length, see how you manage with that. And if next time you still want to try and go a bit shorter, then we'll take it from there. But you don't want to just be rushing into it and then causing a problem for your client. But no, that's a really good question. So we've got our first line in there, you can see. So on the other side, while I was chatting, I did the inside out method. So I've got my baseline. So what I would do then is I'm then going to try to do this so everyone can still see. I'm going to let my second section down. Hopefully that's quite straight. I just want you to see more than anything. So I'm going to do one more section, then I'm going to go on to the dry cutting part. So we've got our straight section there. So what we need to be thinking about now is when we're cutting, is we're going to cut, making sure that we can see that line. That's the key part now. So we're still thinking about everything we thought about before. So we're still thinking about our body position, body angle, finger position, or comb position. But what we need to also be thinking about now is we have to be able to see that line. If we can't see that line, the section is too big and we're guessing, and we need to then go back in and make the section finer. This is completely different for different hair types. So your finer hair types, you find that you can take much bigger sections because you can still see the cutting line. Thicker hair types, you'll have to take smaller sections because you need to be able to see the cutting line. So it really is dependent on it. So then let me just turn it so you can kind of see. So you'll see when I'm cutting now, I would normally be here, but I'm just here so you can see what I'm doing. See how far, that's what I mean by my comb being, my fingers, being quite towards the end of my comb. So when I come in and cut, I've got plenty of space, but I can also see if that's horizontal or if I'm going this way or if I'm going this way. So I can see there that that's nice and horizontal. So then I know I can cut. My fingers as well on my scissors I'm keeping my scissors as parallel as possible. So for me personally, the way I get away with that is my thumb doesn't go through my scissors, just sits on the top. So that means I can get really good angles no matter what I'm doing because my thumb is doing the whole movement, rather than when our hand goes in and it starts to come from here, one, we get a lot more injuries and strains by doing that, but two, it's much harder for our arms to work. Whereas if we just have our thumb on the end, get used to the thumb doing all of the movement, we can get into much nicer, and that's really good for when we're doing the inside out method. If your thumb's all the way through on the inside out method, it becomes quite a laborious technique. Whereas if your thumb can just, try to get my fingers out of the way, if your thumb can just sit on the top like that, it becomes a much easier technique to do, and you can really work on angles doing inside out as well. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, all good.
So just going to put this one more line in, and then, as I said, then we're going to move on to the dry section. So inside out, get your scissors going. I think that's something Lee does in the video, and that really helps me with the inside out, is if you get your scissors going before you actually get to it, your brain almost starts to think this is what we're doing on this side now, because you've changed from going this way to going this way. So get your scissors going, hand as far away as possible. You can see your line, and remember, we're just sketching this line at the minute, so we're looking for it to be straight. It doesn't have to be absolutely bob on. And then something that I do to check as well is every few sections, I'll just bring the comb all the way down so I can see the full length of the comb, and then I can check how horizontal my line is going to be at that time as well. I can start to see if there's going to be any build-ups of weight anywhere if I'm starting to over-direct one way or the other, because I'd be starting to get some length and bits of hair would be popping out. So then what we do, as we know with the one length above, is we carry that on, and then we then check it all, wrap dry, which is a perfect what you have to be doing for straight hair on this type of hair to check out your one length above. So we're wrap drying, we're straightening, then we take our next section down, we wrap dry, we're straightening. So we get to a point where we're cutting most of the rest of the hair dry. So as Blue Peter said, one I made earlier. This young lady here. So what we've got now is, just to let you know, she's got tissue in her hair. Because I pre-sectioned her earlier, I don't want the clips to give me marcation lines in the hair. So what I've done is I've just put, I've got my clip, and I've just put a bit of tissue over the top and then clip. So what that should hopefully do is stop the imprint of the clip happening. So if anyone's ever doing any competition work or photo shoot work, that's and you don't have the actual like little clips that are actually made for it, that, or maybe even using something like a credit card or like a plastic piece of card on top so you don't see the marcation line. It's a really, really cute way and a really nice, easy way for you to stop getting marks in the hair. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to let this hair down, because these are our last few sections, and then we'll then go into the fringe, and then we'll talk about finishing everything. So let's just get this head, make sure a nice natural hair fall. Make sure that's key again to this. So we've done a lovely, beautiful haircut underneath. We don't want to all of a sudden then make our head not be a natural hair fall and it causes a problem for others. So make sure it's a natural hair fall. And then you can see now, all we're doing is just sketching that exact line again. And you can see it so perfectly. This now becomes such an easy job. But like we said before, the easiest jobs where you think you're going to smash out the park in 2 seconds sometimes become the part that ruins the haircut altogether, because you get confident here, you think, oh, I've nailed this, then you don't see your guideline, you go into the hair a little bit more than you should, and then you're 5 minutes before the end of your appointment and you've got a lopsided bob all of a sudden. So even on these final stages, you just have to be really concentrating, really making the effort to make everything absolutely spot on, so that when it comes to the final look, you know that it's going to be absolutely amazing.
What's your favourite haircut to do out of all the lesson recipes? Which one do you kind of go, yes, when you feel like you're going to do it in the salon?
Ooh, I mean, the one that there's two that I use the most in the salon.
Yeah.
I definitely use the graduated bob technique so much in the salon, and I also use the increased layer on curly hair a lot in the salon. In fact, I just did a show in Sweden before Christmas, and apart from like a disconnected front here, the rest of her hair was just the increased layer that we do with Lee Stafford Education. And
the long graduation.
The long graduation. I just had an extended finger angle, but everything was coming up exactly the same as what we're doing that. I disconnected the front and we had a bit of a short thing going on at the front. but she had lovely natural but really thick curly hair. And what I did is, by doing that, I knew I could, and I took it very short at the start. So again, changing little bits, but the principles were exactly the same. And all it did was took loads of weight out of the middle, really made her curls come to life, but she had this lovely long hair, and it kept all of the length of the hair down the back. So I use that a lot with curly hair, that technique. But yeah, then again, I love, I'm a bit like you, whereas one of my passions was Vidal Sassoon and his courses. So I love really intricate cutting. So something like the one length above is also I use quite often, because it's just principles, so basic, and it might seem quite simple to some hairdressers, but if you get it and you actually nail it spot on, and you turn that head to the front, it's absolutely bang on, and it's sharp as anything, and there's no graduation underneath, and when she moves the head, it just falls amazing. I mean, I don't think there's a better feeling as a hair cutter than just having that one length above that just she can move her head wherever, and you just see it moving, and you're like, yes.
Yeah, I love that. Do you how do you get on with the short graduation?
Short graduation for me, I cut a lot of short hair, short graduation, quite freehand and quite soft. Because the one problem I find a lot of hairdressers in particular are scared of short hair, and for that reason don't do that well with it, is the fact of they start to put quite masculine hard lines into short hair. And for me, that's very quickly where you start to create problems with short hair in a feminine shape, shall we say. So for me personally, I do use the techniques that we do with Lee Stafford, but they put a very basic shape in for me, and I make everything quite a bit softer, because from past experience, I would prefer it to be too soft and then harden it up, and then put hard lines in the hairlines and hard lines around here. Then it just looked very masculine, and then you're spending forever with softening techniques and razors and thinning shears and stuff, really trying to make it work. When it had just been a little bit softer at the start, then I wouldn't.
And how would you make it a little bit softer, Rory?
So it might be the tool that I use. So I might use a razor to cut short hair with, rather than using my regular scissors. I might, what else might I do? I might take bigger sections, so I'm building softness into the haircut already. So it's not really nice, neat, precise sections. It's really bigger, softer sections.
I'll tell you what you can do with a short grad as well. You can, this bit here, you can leave this bit quite soft, can't you, around the front?
Just disconnecting pieces. So, sometimes it's worth disconnecting an inch of the whole hairline, because then, at least then you've got that inch to work with that can soften off at the end. So,
Jamie Lee Curtis, Rory, says, what are some of your tips you would give to a young hairdresser who's not confident in short haircuts?
Practice. Practice is number one. Practicing on as many people as possible, as many different types of short hair as possible. Like I said, I think the reason that a lot of hairdressers are a bit shy of short haircuts is that they worry about them going too masculine and too hard, which does happen a lot. So I would say softness is key. Make it as soft as possible, like me and Lee was just talking about with those type of techniques. And I think you will find that you then start to learn to love short hair, rather than it being something that's just an absolute nightmare for you. But it's like anything in hairdressing, the biggest thing to do is just keep, if you're not confident with it, or you don't feel you're very good at it, the only thing to either do is keep practicing it or never cut short hair again in your life. And if you want to be working in a busy salon, it's quite hard to say that you're not going to cut short hair in your life ever again. So the only other option is to practice.
Yeah.
We've got so much from, our videos here that are amazing. But, you've got all of the different staffs putting education videos up on the time. I'm sure they've done a lot of short haircuts. You've got YouTube, we've got private education. Now we can go back to in-person education. So all of the academies are opening back up again. So there's so many places that you can get education from. And hairdressing and haircut in particular is an art form that has to be taught to you, and then you have to practice it. So you have to practice more than anything, and then you will become confident, because confidence, it only comes from you doing something successfully over and over, and then confidence becomes second nature to you, and you just feel great about every short haircut. hopefully that answers your.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just guys, just letting everybody know that the Lee Stafford World website is up and running. I'm sure that you've all seen it. If you haven't, check it out. But very shortly, we're going to be moving all the recipes from the current website over to Lee Stafford World. So if you haven't registered already, then please do so.
And the website is looking amazing. So well done, Lee. It's looking fantastic.
That's right.
So what we've done now is we've checked off all them underneath. So we did exactly the same as what we were doing previously, just following the line, cutting through our comb, and the one length above. If you've done the pre-sectioning amazing, you've got your baselines in really good, then as you work up the head, it's like I said, as long as you keep concentrating, it becomes a walk in the park then, because you're just following a line over and over, and it's almost just then just, sketch the next line, sketch the next line, try and finish it, a little bit of check work, checking with our mirror underneath, checking for any head movement, see if there's any extra long pieces that are going to pop out. But it is then just a way of building such a lovely, beautiful classic haircut. So what we've done now is the only section we've got left is our fringe section. So in the video, we cut the fringe wet, but today I'm just going to show you a different. I sometimes cut my fringes dry, just so I can see how they're behaving straight away. So thinking about this, the diamond section that we create, the triangle section that we create for the fringe, is one of the key and best things I can say to help anyone that's starting to cut fringes for the first time. And that's because we've measured it comes from the high point to the recessions, it stops anything where the hair falls over the side. So a lot of problems people have with fringes is they cut a beautiful fringe, then they see the client in the street or down the road, and they see these little wedgy pieces over here. And then the next time you're in the salon, they're there with the thinning scissors or the thinning shears and trying to break that all up. All that's happened there is the hair we've gone past the recession. So what actually happens is the hair lives here and not here. So we need to make sure that all of this hair lives here naturally. Gravity works on this hair so it falls from here naturally. So it's never going to fall over to the sides. So this is the key thing. If you're ever worrying about fringes, always put this triangle section in first and work from that, and you will probably struggle to go wrong if you do that.
Bond says, I believe that you were studying to do dentistry, Rory.
I was.
What were your family saying when you decided to do hairdressing, and have you ever regretted it?
When I see how much dentists earn, then maybe for a second. But other than that, no, I mean, yeah, I was going to study to dentistry, but then, I don't know, my family haven't ever, because I come from a family of hairdressers. My mum was a hairdresser. I trained and worked in her salon initially. I think they definitely said, you're not here for an easy ride, are you? Because it's going to be the opposite of that. But no, I've never regretted it, because for me, the idea of either spending every day, I say this, yeah, no, I don't want to be near smelly breaths all the time and doing root canals and all the time and stuff. I do also think that the same way as I have with hairdressing, if I'd have gone into dentistry, I naturally would have probably not just been doing day-to-day regular dentistry. I'd have probably wanted to do, more cosmetic or show or education in dentistry. So although I'm glad I chose hair, I think maybe if I'd have gone into dentistry, if I'd have done that path, I think almost my career would have almost kind of gone on the same, because my passion is education and pushing things and not just doing the same thing every day. I like to have a varied day-to-day. So for me personally, I love hair, and I'm glad I'm in hair, and hair's a much more trendy, fashionable, sociable. I mean, dentists are the saddest people in the world, aren't they? And hairdressers are the happiest people.
Well, they don't talk to anybody all day long, do they?
Yeah, they just look in people's mouth, and you try to talk to them because you feel bad. Yeah. Then you've got that stupid big gum shield in your mouth. You can't really talk at all anyway, so it's just no go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut a short fringe section, and I'm going to cut a uniform layer, or whatever we call it these days. So all the hair is coming straight out from the head, and I'm going to cut it really, really short. So I'm going to figure where I want the hair to finish in the end, and then I'm then going to cut it all at that length. And this is going to be my micro fringe. I'm going to point cut it. So remember when we're point cutting, cut as we're coming out of the hair. So the next one I'll move to the side to show you what I'm doing. So we'll let all that hair come down. So now I'm going to turn it to the side to show you what I just did. And I'm just working in sections parallel to the head. So as the hair falls naturally, still seeing my guide. So I'm going to take my next section. When you're doing these on blockheads, it does jump a little bit, but kind of leave it on the longer side slightly, but also just go for it. And then you can always get it to come down. So again, you can see, can you see if I can come back a bit so you can see? So I'm going to the shape of the head. So my finger angle is mimicking the shape of the head. I'm point cutting. So my scissors are cutting as I come out, and I'm cutting with the points of my scissors. We do this to create softness in the haircut because I'm creating a jagged line rather than a smooth, neat line. And I'm then just going to let it drop. Now work into the next section.
Just Bon's got a question here, and thanks for all the questions today, Bon. He said, can you just explain the reason behind the website? Just quickly, because I know that Rory's in the middle of doing this wonderful Fringe at the moment. It's really good. The reason why we created the website, for many reasons, really, this is going to be the first time that we're going to get student data. So, i.e., that'll work brilliantly for students on many different levels. Number one, we'll be able to tell what student is watching recipes, what student isn't. For the ones that are, we can reward them. The ones that aren't, we can help them. We can also try to find students' placements when they leave college. We can guide them into career opportunities. And we can basically help students all the way through their career. You know, we can give them coaching and advice, similar to what we're doing on this course now. There'll also be loads of interviews on Lee Stafford World from loads of different hairdressers, from very young hairdressers to very successful, established hairdressers, so they can give you guys inspiration in their stories and their training, so that you'll appreciate, you know, you're not alone in this journey. You know, other successful hairdressers have gone through the same pain as well. So, you know, there's lots of different reasons why we've set up this website. We want to turn it into more of a media channel where there's lots of videos that will inspire you and encourage you. And we can have, you know, contact with you so we can let you guys know when the masterclasses are happening. We can ask you for your opinion on the Lee Stafford Education models, ways that we can improve it to help you. So there's loads of reasons, guys, and hopefully you'll see all the benefits as soon as we swap over. So register today. You'll be getting the codes very, very soon if you haven't already got them, so that you can then log into Lee Stafford World and get the recipes in there in future. So I hope that's answered your question, Bond. Thank you for all those questions. Jamie Lee Rory says, what was your first opinion of cutting Lee Stafford recipes? What was your first opinion of the Lee Stafford recipes?
No, it was, I mean, the first time I ever came across the Lee Stafford recipes was when Lee was first starting to put this all together and get it out there. And he actually just sent me one over and said, exactly the same as what you lot do this recipe, perfect it, video it, and send it back to me. And a bit like, for me, I was a bit like, oh, this is a bit nerve-wracking. I've not done anything like that before. But even in that first time that I did that, it was one of the basic cutting recipes. And the first time I did that, I saw the power of what it was. I mean, at that stage, I was a hairdresser that had been cutting hair maybe 7 or 8 years. I was a Redken artist, so I was quite good at, I felt, in terms of where I was. But I saw the power in what they were very quickly, because I saw that even me as a hairdresser that was quite experienced got so much from it, and still to this day use so much from it. So if I'm getting that, I imagined, and I also know as a salon owner, the standard of hairdressers, unfortunately, that coming out of hair colleges at the minute, and in terms of I have to retrain my hairdressers, or to be honest with you, I don't ever do hairdressing in terms of they will go on an apprenticeship and I will kind of get the qualification there, I'll actually do the training on them. So for me personally, that's to see these recipes and see how the hairdressers could be coming out of college with that type of skill set was very, very exciting to me. So I think the power of them is just incredible, personally. So what you can see now is, so from doing the that what you call like a uniform layer, I don't know what we call it, so just pulling straight out from the head, I've created a very, very layered fringe. On a client, it could be this short, it could be even shorter. I'm not going to go any shorter on the block because it might start to spring a bit too much. But what I'm doing now is I'm now working softness into the haircut. So firstly, I'm using my thinning shears and I'm just piecing little bits out. So again, you would only do this once you've practiced this technique and you've seen what it does. I'm just softening them ends off now. So I'm using them like that and not like that like we normally would. So I'm just taking pieces out of that end just to soften that fringe off even a bit more. Then another technique that I could use is I could use my scissors. I can start to channel cut through here. So channel cutting is when we cut slices through the hair, creating shorter and longer pieces of hair that's going to create a load of different texture, softness, takes loads of weight out, but it's very, very soft to do as well. I can then soften the ends a bit more, so I can do a bit of deeper point cutting. So a bit of deeper point cutting allows us to soften the shape up even a bit more. So as I'm working with it, I can see, or somewhere, I've also got my feather razor. So I love a feather razor. And I love using it on dry hair. So what I'm doing now, I'm going to take these pieces down so I can start to see my full look coming together. Start to comb the hair into place.
Love that fringe, Rory.
And we'll then just use my feather razor over the top. And again, just adding a little bit more softness. I almost use this like a bit of a pencil. And I just kind of pencil in where I want an extra bit of weight out.
So tell me this, Rory. Just tell me this, Rory. With that fringe, did you cut it like a short, long grade? Were your fingers
no, like a short uniform. I would call, I can't remember if we call it that, a uniform layer. So everything's coming straight out from the head.
Straight out from the head, right? Gotcha. Nice.
So we've got a lot of layering up here. So if you can see when it's held up, we've got a lot of layering up here, because what I'm going to do in the end is put a little bit of texture in here, and you get that, what I class as like a Rod Stewart type, Mick Jagger fringe, where, you know, it's not just a micro fringe that's blunt, it's a soft textured micro fringe that's got a lot of movement in it, so we can get product in here and really start to create something very different, and different to kind of probably the old micro fringes that we've been doing in the past. And then this is where hairdressing comes fun to me, and this is where, like Lee says all the time, once you understand the basic principles, this is when it then becomes fun, because we can do all sorts of different types of cutting, because I understand everything from elevation to over direction to point cutting to, I understand all of it. So every time I close my scissors, I know exactly what I'm going to create, so I can then just have fun and just get properly creative and just go for it and just create some real fun. And if you do that on a client in the salon with confidence, their face just lights up, because they're just like, they can see you, just, they get so happy that they can see someone, an artist, as we are, building something that just is quite special and quite unique to them. It's, you know, it's like having their own work of art on the head. You know, we know how much everyone loves works of art, so to have your own work of art on your head is just a lot of fun, really. And then we could soften off the sides, but I'm going to keep it nice and chunky, so I get the difference of chunky one length. So I've got a chunky one length coming around here with a little bit of soft colour paneling. Chunky one length there coming across the back. You see when a hair moves, still falling into place nicely. That's because I've done all of my checking. Then I'm just going to use a little bit of a spray wax in a fringe, just to get an extra bit of texture up there.
Nice. Looks lovely. You've got lovely contrast between that kind of really one length, clean bob, and then that kind of layered, textured fringe.
It's pretty trendy, isn't she?
Yeah, she looks great.
And then just like that, and then a tiny little bit of a serum oil through the rest of it, just to seal them ends at the sides. Give an extra bit of shine, just so you can really tell the difference.
Gorgeous. Looks gorgeous. Love the colour as well.
Thank you. And there you've got a one length above with a different fringe, but everything else is very, very classic, very as we do it, but is absolutely like knock it out of the park. Makes you feel like
so that mashup is like a one length above and a uniform layer, really.
Yeah, one length above with a uniform layer, yeah.
Yeah. uniform layer with the fringe. I mean, the sectioning is exactly how you would normally do a one length above, but apart from pulling that front bit all down and cutting a line, you've done a uniform layer on the top.
Exactly, yeah. And let's look at how deep, and that's what we talk about, how just if you understand it all, and this pre-section, and then just changing one of those sections ever so slightly, how different it can make a look when you understand it fully and you know when and what and how you can change it. So that is, again, reinforcing the basic principles of, if you understand the basics and you understand the strengths of the recipes, then you can then create. I mean, this could go, I would use this for a show in front of thousands of people. So, and every hairdresser that does these recipes, once they've nailed that, can do this in no time at all for every client.
Absolutely. It looks amazing, Rory. It looks really, really cool. Very simple again, but it's banging. It looks fantastic. The answer to the goodie bag competition this week, how many awards has Lee Stafford won for hairdressing and for, these are product awards as well. What do you reckon, Rory? How many awards?
Oh, too many. 47.
78.
Oh,
78. So it's Amanda Babs that's won the competition this week. Amanda said 79.
wow.
He was just one off, Amanda. So whoever your trainer is, if you could get them to send me a little email and let me know where I need to send them products and what your hair's like, I'll get them in the post straight away. Thank you, Rory, for sharing with us another beautiful technique, brilliantly demonstrated. Thanks a lot, mate. And thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful week, and we shall see you next week. So take care, everybody.
Guys.
See you soon.